Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. To subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, please visit us at www.thewisdomcircle.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wisdom Circle. We're getting close to the holiday season as we start to produce this podcast. Thanksgiving's coming up, the holiday season, the new year, and we've been on for about, 18 months, Ray? And I think what we're learning, and introduce Ray Warren, those of you who haven't watched the podcast, co-host, he keeps reminding me that we've been friends for 45 years, but we keep learning, and that's what this podcast has done for us. And we're both actually starting to do other work and consulting work, I think, because of it. So you all and our guests make us smarter, and we're trying to pass that on as we go on. Ray, how's everything going?
Good, Tony. Thanks. And I think the keynote for us on, first of all, it's 47, but I was always the math guy on how long we've been friends. You've always been the A to Z, and I'm the A, B, C, D, E. But for me, what's most fulfilling about the podcast is when Ramon, our producer and researcher and everything guy, tells us that every podcast we've done from day one grows every week. So, I think that shows that there's momentum and investigation and, curiosity about what we're doing. And, that's fulfilling, that we're not just kind of talking to each other and a friend or a colleague to keep busy. I mean, I think there are people who really like it. That's great.
Yeah, no, I do too. And I think we try to make it real and organic. And so with that, as you see him on the screen, is our guest today. I'll give a little introduction. EJ Johnston. EJ reached out to me probably over a year ago as he had this great concept of 3-on-3 hockey. He asked me to be on his board. And there's a lot going on with it. And obviously EJ had a life before he founded Three Ice. So without further ado, let me introduce EJ Johnston. EJ, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to be here with you guys. Appreciate it.
So give us a little background before we talk a little bit about Three Ice of sort of your growing up, where you've been before that, and what are the things that sort of ultimately inspired you to create your own asset called Three Ice?
It's kind of a lifelong journey, Tony. I got to grow up in a really, really wonderful environment. My father, EJ Johnston, played in the NHL, and being around guys like Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr and Johnny Busick, and then later in his career, Mario Lemieux and Rick Kehoe and Yager, and then Sidney Crosby. My line is, I like to think some of that rubbed off on me, but just being around winners, my father, first and foremost, just listening to him talk, the way he kind of moved through the world. He was a coach in the NHL, so that kind of mindset, there's a lot of my inner monologue is his voice a lot of times. So it was wonderful to grow up in a hockey family, being around those kinds of winners. And then, for me, a Penn State guy, I went up to Boston, worked with big ad agencies at the time. And the Tony Ponturo character was always in the background. He's like, you got to get to Tony Ponturo. And I told Tony that, Ray, when I first reached out to him about a year or so ago. In the advertising world, Tony Ponturo was the, Moby Dick's white whale. And it was just a guy you had to get to. And all the feedback was he's a great guy. He's a fair guy. If you can get in front of him, and he'll give you your shot to at least pitch him. And so I was at Fox Sports for a long time. My old bosses, John Stewart and Steve Baker, who are now part of Three Ice, would talk about Tony in very reverent terms. So I enjoyed doing that for a long time, selling media, going from the ad agency world then to selling to agencies at Fox Sports. And then I went down to New York, was hired by IMG. I had interviewed with most of the sports leagues. I got an offer from a couple of them. I won't name who, but the pay was so bad that I said, I can't live in New York on this money. So I went to work for IMG, and it was a wonderful opportunity. I had one foot in their business development group. A guy by the name of Peter Johnson was running that, and learned a lot from some very savvy senior guys. And my day job was to run Fashion Week. They had just purchased New York City Fashion Week. It's a huge money loser. By the time I left, we had turned it around. We had New York, LA, Miami, Mumbai, Australia, and we built a consultancy inside of IMG to most of the other fashion weeks that matter: Paris, Milan, Moscow, St. Petersburg. It's a little like the PGA Tour. There's 4 majors, if you will: New York, Milan, Paris, and London, and then a bunch of others that really matter. And traveled the world. Fascinating business. Nobody deals in the currency of perception more, not even Hollywood, than fashion does. Really learned events, really learned some content, sales, business development, operations, all that stuff. Was hired away by Getty Images, one of my sponsors, and I built out a 4th column for them. They had news, they had sport, they had entertainment. I built out the fashion division for those guys, and basically made all the IMG events and the rest of the events around the world that I had relationships with, our clients. Sort of got paid a few different ways to shoot the shows, to shoot for the sponsors, and built a nice business for them. 7-figure business, grew it year over year by double digits, but had the itch to start my first business. And so the model for me as a race fan, Formula One was kind of my favorite thing. I saw the same model in the fashion space, like Formula One, but instead of auto races, you could take fashion weeks. And I bundled up a whole bunch of them, and about 30 of them. And they were twice a year, so we had a lot of events under what I call the Global Fashion Association. I helped them find efficiencies on their local sponsorships. I had their global media rights and their global sponsorship rights. And I went out to Hollywood and I started selling TV shows in the fashion space. So Shark Tank for fashion, Sports Center for fashion, The Ultimate Fighter for fashion. And the biggest success was the one for NBC. It was called Fashion Star. It was basically Shark Tank, but our sharks were Saks, Macy's, and H&M. And you could buy the clothes online. We sold about $6 million of clothes each year. So a huge, what we call big, shiny floor production. We sold it in about 150 countries. I think 148 is the exact number. And then I made a bunch of country-specific versions, like a Vietnamese version, a Middle Eastern version, a German version. And it was really a wonderful experience traveling around the world making television. I was actually the first guy, first American or first non-Chinese to go and make a reality television show in China. It was like being an astronaut. It was wild. Talking full of 50 Chinese people, cracking a joke and then waiting 10 seconds for everyone to laugh. We would shoot with 6 or 7 cameras. They would shoot with 40. It was a very, very interesting experience, but I taught them how to make some reality television over there. Did about 4 or 5 trips, but just a really wonderful sort of backstory that was all kind of prelogue to what I saw as a shifting media landscape where snackable leagues, which is the word I use, like rugby sevens or the Indian Premier League, which is the short form version of cricket, Big 3 basketball, Formula E, all having wonderful success. And here you had the NHL with a wonderful proof of concept with their overtime, their 3-on-3 overtime. I said, this is the best part of hockey. This should be our full-time format. And wrote the business model, poked holes in it for about a year. Got my friends at networks in the NBA and NHL to sort of make sure I wasn't imagining things. Got the band back together, my old bosses from Fox Sports, built the team, walked into CBS, got the media rights sold, and we're off to the races.
That's great. Great.
Wow. That is very
That's all
impressive.
new information for you, so I should let you digest it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you can dive in anywhere. It was a fascinating ride. It was a wonderful career to this point, and it's all been very beneficial for making 3 Ice. It's been great.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. People who have successful outcomes usually have a great story. I guess, I had a couple of questions that came and went in the meanwhile, but so the pivoting, well, first of all, let me just say that, and I don't need to bang on my relationship with Tony because, he gets as much out of me as I get out of him. But I was the one guy in media who couldn't call Tony because all the people who worked for him knew that if I called Tony, he was going to say, hey, what the hell? What? I love her. Don't make. So I always had this kind of leverage, like, don't make me call Tony because really, I don't want to use that relationship this way. So I was the one guy who didn't want to get to Tony that way. We just go out to Italian meals and drink wine. But
I wasn't important enough to get to Tony, so don't worry.
I was just a friend. Hey, we bumped into each other in the same cubicle.
Way too low on the totem pole to get to Tony, believe me.
So pivoting, I love the pivots, right? because I've done a bunch of them. I mean, I went around the table between buying, planning, selling, whatever, and running Telemundo. So the pivots that people make, to me, what goes in, because the safe bet is just stay put, ask for a bigger raise, hope somebody calls you
Sure.
and recruits you out. But, so I'd love to talk a little bit about in the early part from big Boston agencies. I think you said then you went to Fox, but like maybe the first couple, how did you get into advertising? And then how about the change out of advertising? What were those kind of fueled by, filled by?
Yeah, I was always fascinated with marketing, and ad agencies were great. You kind of get classically trained in marketing, the 4 Ps and all the things that you need to know there, but you don't make any money. And I ran into Steve Baker, who was working for Fox Sports. I remember my first job. I think I made $22,000, and I worked a ton of overtime, and I got, I think, $3,000 more. I had a roommate in a 1-bedroom apartment. I wanted to make some money. So, but I love the marketing space. There was so much to enjoy about it. And getting trained on that side was also really, really beneficial. The psychology of it. There's just a lot of really great things in that space.
Totally agree.
But as a hockey guy, I was going to the NHL All-Star game in Vancouver. And Bobby Orr, who's my godfather, happened to be standing coincidentally at the ticketing counter for the flight out there from Boston. And Steve Baker noticed that I was talking to him, came up and said hello. And we just started up a conversation, and he started picking at me, and it felt like a job interview at a certain point. But he gave me a call after we got back from the All-Star game. He said, listen, I think you could come over here. I think you're a winner. I think you could come over here and make a real dent. Let me show you what we're starting up here. And it was the Fox Sports Regionals to compete against ESPN, but on a localized basis, the RSNs. And I loved it. I took to a fish like water and just really enjoyed selling. And between John Skirmerhorn and Steve Baker, they taught me about 95% of what I know about sales. So the sales inner monologue is probably John and Steve's voice quite a bit in my head. But being classically trained at an ad agency and then going to sell media to ad agencies didn't really feel like much of a pivot. I spoke that language. I had some great relationships around Boston, and my job was to sell the Celtics and the New England Revolution and Hockey East and all that stuff. So it was a nice pivot, but didn't feel like one. I thought I was the richest guy in Boston. I think I made $60,000 the next year, and I was like, it was, blew my mind. And so I was the rich one in my friends for about a year or so.
Yeah. You had to buy all the beers.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony, please.
No, I said you had to buy all the beers for your buddies.
That's right. That's right. I was the first guy with a cell phone. That was the other thing. So if you wanted to get in touch with them, they used my number when we were out on Friday nights. The phone bill was quite expensive. But really enjoyed that. Did that for about 3.5, 4 years and had a lot of success there. But I had another itch, and I wanted to go down to New York City and test myself in the biggest marketplace in the world for media and sales. And I can remember the exact moment, Ray. I was sitting in a pitch in Boston with Monster.com. And I really wasn't supposed to be selling national sponsorships. It was only supposed to be intra New England. And they said yes to a $10 million deal. And I said, okay. And we had all the guys up from New York because this was a very big deal. And just little, young EJ, green EJ selling this deal. I said, I can do this. And so that was the moment in my head that I knew I could go and do this at the biggest stage in the biggest market in the world. And I wanted to challenge myself. So that was the pivot I made, interviewed with all the leagues down there for sales positions, and got the position with IMG in their sports business group and selling fashion.
Well, that's interesting because, Tony and I grew up in the New York media market. So I'm not sure we've had a lot of people talk about pivoting from a major city to the biggest city in the world and the biggest media market. So that takes some guts too, right? I mean, you don't know how that's going to play out, but you must have had some level. I am going to put words in your mouth. I'm not going to. That I can. You said it. I can do this, but you still getting on a plane or a train from Boston to New York. You're like, okay, here we go. What did that feel? And then Tony, I'll stop and throw it back.
No.
It's organic. We let it go.
It was exciting. It was exciting. The world's a big place, and look, my mother's from New York. My father's from Montreal. I had the benefit of traveling and seeing other places growing up, and I knew that there was a big wide world out there of interesting things. And one of my goals, I heard a great phrase 25 years ago, was acquire gray matter capital. You can acquire degrees, and get, external credentialing, if you will, that validates certain things. And you have to have a college degree to a certain extent to play in the game we're playing. But I felt like acquiring gray matter capital and experiences, that was really interesting to me. And the IMG position to sell things on a global basis, to go around the world. I was in Russia and, South America and across Europe doing business with people in different cultures and different languages. And you kind of get a master's degree in how to deal with people, how to sell. When you have to sell different cultures, for the most part, everyone's kind of the same. It's the last 2 or 3%, the nuances in people and culture that I enjoy. And I loved it. And being around really smart people like Peter Johnson, the rest of the business development group, guys like Jay Lotz and Alan Zucker, really smart guys that you can just get to sponge off of and learn from them. It was a masterclass in how to sell. And it just felt like a wonderful experience for me to just acquire this kind of experience. So it was exciting. It wasn't necessarily nerve-wracking.
That's the way to look at it. Not fearful.
Yeah.
You can't be hesitant. You got to just, I guess that's a hockey and an F1 guy too, because you got to just throw yourself out there and just, hope.
That's right. And, you have to have some skill set. You have to have some experience in it. But if you don't know 10, 20, 30% of it, that's okay. Go and take people to lunch, ask them questions, pay attention, take good notes, get up early, stay late, all the things that, successful people have to do and enjoy doing. And so I soaked it up. I mean, the 75, 80-hour work week was fun to me. And you're in New York City. And I got a little bit of money in my pocket, not a lot, but a little bit of money in my pocket. In my 20s, New York was a wonderful place to be. Boston, to me, best city in the world if you're just out of university, because it's kind of affordable and 500,000 kids from all over the world are there. New York for the next level. You're trying to come into your own as a man from your late 20s into your early 30s. It was exciting. And you're learning every day. And I'm doing deals with major brands at major events that are viewed by the world. The New York City Fashion Week was a global property. And all the fashion people complained about the monetization and the commercialization of it. My bosses were patting me on the back and the bonuses were nice. So I loved it. I absolutely loved the adventure.
Cool. Well, sort of the example, and we talk a lot about this in other podcasts, and hopefully particularly our younger listeners and viewers are picking up on this, is you do have to take some risks, right? And follow your gut. I had an old basketball coach in high school who always said you have to meet the ball halfway, the pass halfway, or it'll get intercepted. And so I always think of that as, you're responsible for your career. Like a lot of some young people are like, I don't know, they're sometimes waiting for some career, angel to come and take them through the ride. And you're really the angel. You're the doer, the angel, and everything else. And what you just talked about was, one foot in front of the other, following your instinct, getting credentials. I love the gray matter thing because, I always want to be sensitive, for the guy that wrote Revenge of the C+ Student. Yes, the education is important, but it's all those other human factors that are coming out. And I think it's even more and more starting to come out in conversation and dialogue at the university level that, a lot of people in this world are smart, but it's what you do with it and how you sort of hustle and take some chances, which you did, And I know you personally, EJ, and, you devoted yourself so much to it that at the end, you really, not that anyone has to start a family, but you started a family relatively late in life, know, because you were, doing what you had to do to meet that hunger of that career and really the innovation that was going through you that you wanted to see through.
Yeah. I made a decision early in my life. You can either be a cork on the ocean or the captain of your own ship. And, the captain of your own ship is a much better way to live. You still have your challenges. And you're right. I got married late. In a perfect world, I probably got married in my early 40s rather than my late 40s. But, as my uncle used to say, was a very successful guy. You want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And, I love being a family man. I love being a dad. I call my daughter the best because she's the best part of my day. She's the best thing I ever made. She is just a wonderful delight. And, the 5 hours of sleep and having to juggle things. And my team will get emails from me at 2 a.m. because I work from about 7 till about 4. Then I do dad stuff for about 4 hours, and then I get back into it. You find a way,
Yeah.
you find a way, but it's been, I knew that I wanted to put things on my plate and experience things and see the world and make a dent in the world, which is, why I'm an entrepreneur. You take gambles, and you're right. You can't sit around waiting for the career genie to come and tap you on your shoulder. You must go out and make things happen. We all know the joke about the guy that was trapped in the flood sitting on his roof, and he said, "Oh, God will provide." And the helicopter comes by and the boat comes by, and he said, "Hey, I sent some stuff to help you. You should have taken the hints." Well, life does that to you. You see opportunities and you should take them. And in your 20s and 30s, roll the dice. There's really no risk of failure. You fail, you dust yourself off and get back up. My father, again, his voice is in my head. He had a lot of challenges. He was also a tough guy, and he got into a lot of bar fights. And one time I asked, I said,
why? Too.
He won a lot. He didn't lose too many. According to a lot of people, he didn't lose too many. But I said, "Well, why'd you get in so many fights?" He said, "Well, 1, I liked it." And I said, "Okay." 2, what happens when you got knocked down? He goes, "Make sure you get back up. The number one thing is get back up." And that's a metaphor for street fights. That's a metaphor for business. It's a metaphor for life. Everybody's going to take those punches. And I've had them in every stage of my career. And Tony can tell you I've had them with 3 Ice, but we've muscled through them, and the momentum is real. And, you get calluses, but it's what makes you interesting. It makes you successful. It draws people to you because people know you've got something inherently interesting going on, and you're someone they can bet on, whether that's for an entrepreneur to have investors bet on him, clients bet on you. If I walk into Tony Ponturo's office and pitch him something, and he knows that my reputation is one of someone who's grinded things out and made something successful, he's going to listen to my pitch versus, "I don't know anything about this guy. He's never faced any challenges. He's never had any failures." There's something about that resiliency and those calluses that matter. We call it experience a lot of times, but there's deeper layers to it. So I didn't mind taking those shots, and thankfully.
But see, that's I want to dig into that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I wanted to dig into that because so you have a daughter.
I do.
And how old is she?
She is 20 months. Her name is Amira Teresa, and her birthday's March 1st, and we've got another one on the way for February 1st.
Nice.
You remember those
days? And this is kind of where. What's that, Tony?
I said, you remember those days raising your 3 kids?
Well, that's kind of where I was going, which I was like, I've got 3 in their 30s. Not some doing great, some figuring themselves out. But I wanted to ask about, like, with 3 Ice, and I'm going to guess you have some younger folks on the team, right, in the 20s or 30s.
Yes,
because I think. Say again.
Especially on the marketing side.
Yeah. So, those folks have grown up in such a different world. We had this opportunity in front of us. Until 9/11, nothing bad had ever really happened if you were working in the 70s, 80s, and we had recessions, but nothing like socially bad. And I'm not going down any other lines other than the way they've grown up has been very different. And I think when we had an inspiration or I got to do this, we just did it,
Yes.
And I feel like this group of 20s and 30s, and I am hoping to speak to some of our audience where they don't have, you have such a spark and such a ignition, to turn that spark into a flame. I think there's some reluctance and fear and safe is better. Like, working out of my bedroom in my pajamas is pretty cool. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm trying to be empathic to what has gone on in the last 20, 30 years. It's hard. And so how do you address that in your workplace? If you have anyone like that, maybe they'd never make it through the filters of getting to work for EJ.
They wouldn't. I'm not an easy guy to work for. So let me pay this compliment to this generation before I give them a little criticism as well.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are aggressive and smart and willing to get after it are very talented because they've got a lot more tools in the toolkit, I think, right? We didn't have to have, this device has changed things quite a bit. And there's some things that they know about this device, how it affects psychology and behavior, that is kind of a few more arrows in their quiver. We just didn't have those things that we had to adjust to. So the ones that are talented, aggressive, smart, want to make a dent in the world, they've got a little bit more on the ball than probably I did, 20 some odd years ago. The challenge is there's a lot more people sitting back in this generation waiting for things to happen. And there's a little too much softness. Dana White says, if you're a millennial now and you're a savage, you're going to eat up the rest of your generation because there's so many, young men and women out there that are kind of soft. And I don't know why. There's a whole host of things that we could probably talk about on a different podcast. But the ones that are in the top 10, 20%, the elite ones, there's a very large gap between the rest of them. It's almost like tennis. The top 3 or 4 guys are unbelievable at tennis. They win everything. And then the 5th, 6th, 7th tennis player in the world can't really touch those guys. It's just, they're just close to those top 4 guys. And I see that with this generation. So I'm very, very careful about who we hire. We've got about 4 or 5 folks that are youngish. And so they're smart. They're on the ball. They're educating me on, technology and back office stuff and the best way to approach the social media landscape. You have to be a little careful with it. You got to be careful you're not confusing marketing with noise. So there's something that I personally have to filter out. But you're right. You don't get, there's some signifiers pretty quickly that you're somebody that I want around me or not, pretty quickly. It's a lot easier to spot, I think, in this generation. Fortunately and unfortunately for some of those.
I think one of the worst things that's ever happened is online job applications, where kids can fill out 30 job applications a day and feel like, oh yeah, I'm really looking for a job. I'm like, you're really not looking for a job. You're filling out an online application. Because there was always this reluctance to work the network, right?
That's right.
Which I've never believed in. It's like, if you have a network of people who can help you, yeah, it was important. And, Tony actually recommended me for a job at Raycom Sports. I spent 15 years there, for better or for worse. But joke. You got to work the network, and there was always this little bit. Now, I'm just going to do these online applications. Tough.
There's a great phrase that I learned in the fashion space. The fashion industry, a lot of times, Ray, confuses activity for accomplishment, and I think that's what you're talking about there. Right. Someone feels like they're doing something, but you're not accomplishing anything. Your chances of getting a job online 0.5%. And I mentor people. I mentor young people. And I've had about 5 to 10 through my career. And I always give them an assignment. And this is one of my filters. I tell them, identify 3 to 5 industries you want to be in. Identify the 15 to 20 companies in each one of those industries that you want to go after. Now we've got our list of 50, 60, 70 brands. You're going to go and get coffee or lunch or beers with these people in person. And if you're unwilling to do that, they have to come back to me with a list. And the ones that come back to me with their list that have done it, I help. The ones that don't, and I tell them this, I go, you're either going to come back to me with your list and I'll be helpful to you, or you're not. And about 80% of them don't come back to me. The ones that do, I'll still talk today.
That's the shot. I'm really, that 80, that's a big number. My Lord.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one out of 5, 1 out of 6 will come back to me. The rest will not. And so that's my natural filter for giving you my time and my help and my expertise and my network. And you're absolutely right. To take people out to lunch. You have to be in person. Yeah. We do a lot of selling over Zoom now, but there's no substitute for going to see people. It just isn't. I'm here in Iowa. We announced 3 Ice coming to Iowa this year, and I'm meeting with the team and the mayor and our investors and our sponsors. You have to spend time with people, and you have those, those kind of coffee klatch moments where you start talking about life or family, business, and there's something that happens there that we all know we can't really describe, but something special happens there. And that's what business is. That's what relationships are. And so confusing activity for accomplishment is a very, very dangerous thing. Yeah.
Tony, I'm taking up the whole damn thing. So
No. I just wonder, are you torturing your dog again? What are you doing?
Oh, she's betting. Somebody rang the doorbell. Sorry, I didn't know if you could hear it.
No. That's okay.
Hopefully, Ramon will filter it out. No, I put her in 2 rooms away, but whatever.
So EJ, I don't want to. We've got some time, but I don't want to let the time pass. Let's do a little promotion for Three Ice and what's going on in the sense of you sort of talked a little bit of what Three Ice is. I know you're in Iowa. You made a nice big announcement yesterday. Why don't you take 5 minutes or so, and Ray will indulge us here about what Three Ice is and not only where it is now, but sort of your vision of where it's going.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the log line is, we are the Rugby Sevens, the Indian Premier League, the Big Three basketball of ice hockey. Our mission is to take the greatest hockey spectacle on earth and share it with the world. We think hockey is an incredible sport. We think there's about 60 to 70 million people out there that know they love hockey, but probably another 60 to 70 million that don't know they love hockey. We have taken the NHL's overtime session, the 3-on-3 overtime session. So that's 3 skaters plus a goalie, but in hockey, we don't count the goalie, and made that our full-time format. When the NHL came out with that several years ago, I was skeptical at first. And after going to 1 or 2 games and seeing it, I was sold. I was hooked. And I think almost every hockey fan will tell you it is electric. It is the best part of hockey. That is our tagline. So we formed a league, a snackable sports league, I like to say, based on that model. And we had this wonderful proof of concept. So for me, the kind of I'll use the origin story, some Hollywood speak. The origin story was I was at the Pittsburgh Penguins and New Jersey Devils rookie camps. I'm a hockey guy, so I have access to that kind of stuff. And they finished with 3-on-3 tournaments. And I'm watching, particularly in Pittsburgh, a packed house of about 1,000 people, watching these unknown rookies playing this 3-on-3, and they're oohing and awing, and they're on the edge of their seats. And I'm sitting there with Billy Guerin and Jimmy Rutherford and the scouting staff and my father. I start picking at Billy Guerin, and I said, Billy, what are you looking for? And the adjectives just leapt off the page. I'm looking for speed, creativity, hockey IQ, risk-taking, guts, execution, great hands. And it was just wonderful stuff. And it just clicked that day. I went home. I've got a stack of business models that I've written. Some are good, some are terrible. And I wrote the business model. It took me about a month. I took that to all my friends to poke holes in it. Folks at the NBA, NHL, television network executives, NBC folks, friends at BET. I sold a TV show, if you can believe it, about a black woman's hair salon when I was in Hollywood. It's another story for another time. And they made sure I wasn't imagining things. And then I took the next year to build the team, get the band back together, and go find people that believed. I found Keith Bank, our lead investor. Eventually, Tony came on board. But we've built this wonderful, exciting product of 3-on-3 hockey, and it is electric. It is, objectively speaking, fun as hell to watch. It is a track meet, hair on fire hockey. So our game is 2 8-minute periods of running clock. So that is one game. We have an 8-team league, but we bring 4 of those teams to each week's event. So we play 2 semifinals, consolation game, and a championship game at each one of these events. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes of hockey, but you get 4 games, and you get about 6 or 7 goals in each one of those games. So if you extrapolate that out, that's about 25 or 26 goals in a game. But yet it doesn't feel gimmicky because of the short, compact nature. And then you've got about a 20-minute pregame and a 20-minute postgame. So you've got those 4 games with 4 results. You crown a champion at the end of each night, and you've got a wonderful 3-hour broadcast. Our TV ratings are the same size as the TNT broadcast for the NHL. The excitement is palpable, and we've just got this wonderful thing that now is building a real momentum. We first started out with CBS as our TV partner. We pulled ourselves out of that deal. We took time to get the NHL on board. They're behind us now, backing us, and no small thanks to Tony Ponturo. And we've got a great TV product. It's electric. Our partners at FanDuel are really excited. We broadcast with other regional sports networks around the United States. I know that world well. I can sort of sell to those guys. We've got a 75 million person audience, and we're doing about 250,000 eyeballs every single broadcast. And then where we're taking the business is other brand extensions. We're going to do an international competition called 3 Ice World Cup. We're doing 3 Ice Kids, think Little League World Series. And we're going to do something just like the basketball tournament or the soccer tournament. And it's called the 3 Ice Open. It's an amateur division. All of that's coming online. And the product is unbelievable. And all these brand extensions bring it to different market segments, and we can grow the game. At the end of the day, it's a love letter to hockey. I love doing this, and I think we can bring a lot of joy and make a lot of money, which is important. I'm a capitalist. I want to make money because I think it's a great way to add value to people's lives. I think we can keep excitement joy, pleasure, and have great business with this. So that's what we are in a nutshell.
Well, and Ray, you and I talked a couple of podcasts ago with the mayor's committee. Well, and EJ and I talked actually
Yes.
to them, and when Ray and I had Professor Lee Eagle on about people are looking for family entertainment, and we forget that there's 330 million people that all are not in New York and LA. But what do we do in the summer with our kids that will be fun entertainment? And obviously, the Savannah Bananas have become the poster child for that. But as Free Ice is now going out, and it's like, it's great family entertainment as well as the excitement of the hockey. The one thing that, and then Ray, I'll throw it back to you. I didn't want to lose sight of, because this is a great asset, if you will, trait is the word I'm looking for with EJ. If you picked up on what he said about 2 minutes ago, was he gives his idea to friends and let them poke at it, and like poke holes in it. That's a really admirable thing. And I'll tell you a quick anecdote. When I was producing on Broadway, we had a script with the music of Air Supply. And this woman wrote the script. She had gone to Air Supply, and we had a reading for it. We had the woman director from Rock of Ages. And the woman said to the playwright, essentially the playwright, who I won't mention, we need to work on it. We need to make some changes. We need to, dramaturg it, as they say. And she said, no. She thought she had the perfect script. Right. Guess what? The show never went anywhere. Because it was a good concept. It was a good idea. Air Supply was right there with their music, but she wouldn't change it. And so I think that's a really important and a great trait that you have, EJ, which is, this is my idea, but you can make it better. And I'm strong enough, confident enough that you can give me ideas, and that makes you a better person.
But here's where I see those two stories, right? So EJ used the word capitalist,
right,
where you would want that. Someone who wrote a play, that's an artist.
Yeah.
Sure. And when art and commerce meet, it can get really funky, right?
Yeah.
So I totally get it. I do want to go back to a couple of things. So one, just for background, EJ, I haven't talked too much other than I worked at Raycom because Tony gave my name to Rick and D. Ray, but I was also Chief Revenue Officer of the regional sports networks at NBC Sports. So dove deeply into the regional business. Then I went to Telemundo for 7 years, where I was president of the World Cup in Qatar and Moscow and all that stuff. But I fell in love with the game of soccer. I was a baseball, basketball, hockey, football, golf type guy.
Soccer was my first love. Soccer was my first love.
Other than watching my kids play, which starts from pigeon soccer, where everybody follows the ball, to actually, oh my God, they're passing.
Sure.
So I'm sitting here, and this cannot be an original idea, because just sure it isn't. But I thought about, I used to say to people that didn't understand soccer, I'm like, look, hockey is soccer on ice. They're skating around. It's insane how fit they are and how amazing that game is. But it's soccer on ice. You've got goalies, you've got offense, you've got defense, you've got linemen, you're scoring goals, not a lot, blah, blah, blah. But this is the same game, different surface.
Yep.
And then I was at a couple of games over the course of my time there that had shootouts in them, which might be the most exciting part to ever watch in a soccer game.
Nerve-wracking.
Shootout.
Yes.
So I was just sitting here thinking wow, and again, can't be an original idea, but I not want to not say, is there a format or something that could lend itself to three ice soccer?
Well,
right?
it already exists, Ray. So I borrow from something.
Another great idea.
There's a guy, Gerard Piqué, who played for Barcelona. He has created what's called the Kings League. It's a 7-on-7 soccer league. It's a media property, just like I think Three Ice is. He puts it in a studio, lays down turf. It's a short field. He puts some fun, kind of funky, gimmicky things. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. Right. But he's got this wonderful thing based in Spain, and now it's in Brazil. Now it's in Mexico. He's bringing it to the Americas. There's men's and women's. It's going like gangbusters. They have some wonderful investors backing them.
That's a global play. Is is it shootouts or is it just short soccer games?
No, it's short soccer, and then if you're tied, they go to shootouts. But what they do is it's actually one-on-one. The guy takes the ball from center field and dribbles in on the goalie. The goalie comes out at him, and he's got, I think, 10 seconds to take a shot. It's a very interesting format, and they've done very, very well. They don't have a TV broadcast deal. They just do it on the internet, millions of views on the internet, and then they sell out Camp Nou Stadium in Barcelona, 90,000 people, or Stadium Azteca in Mexico City, 120,000 people.
Exactly.
He is doing a very, very nice job with this thing. So the short answer is yes, there's other snackable leagues out there, and you could do this in almost anything. And my Hollywood brain has always thought, put it in a studio.
People want the punchline. People
That's
want,
right.
They want
That's
the
right.
goal. They don't want to watch 3 hours of
That's
third, fastball outside. Okay, great.
If there was a football, an NFL football red zone only league, that might be really interesting, right? That's a snackable version of it.
Yeah.
We're kind of, we're overtime all the time. So we are just all gas, no brakes. So
that's where I was thinking with soccer. Starts out. I mean, my line to a lot of people is, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, they're all trying to go from the U.S. to the rest of the world.
Sure.
FIFA is in the rest of the world. They're trying to get bigger in the U.S. And the only way they get bigger in the U.S. is to not have a 2-hour soccer game, even though 45-minute halves, 15-minute break, it's a lot of action. It's just too damn long. And so just cut down to the shootout.
This fast action. David Hill, who was head of Fox Sports for a long time, had a great perspective, and he said, why the NFL does so well, and you all probably read the ratings just continue to grow. And yes, it's a great game, and yes, does betting and fantasy leagues help it? Yes. But he said it's nonstop action because you see the play when you're watching television. And now you see it again in a replay. And then you see it another chance in another angle.
Yeah.
So there's always action, and he said you realize that when you actually go to a game at the site, it's like it's just all this dead time because you're not getting the replay twice of the actual thing. So it was sort of an interesting perspective from him, which was this nonstop action. And thinking about, you talk about young people, EJ's kids are going to grow up with, AI and, all this other stuff. I'm trying to get it. I was talking to Eric Simonson, who we had on the podcast, who was the playwright for Lombardi. And we were talking about a whole, obviously, different project. And he goes, just have some fun. Go to ChatGPT and say, if we did a revival of Lombardi, who would be good co-stars? And now you bark in or you type it in, and in 6 seconds, there's 3 different perspectives of who would be a good Vince Lombardi. And it just blows me away, and I know the young people, they're just going to expect that, it's just like, tell me what to have for breakfast this morning that will make me 20 pounds.
I'll tell you, speaking of scripts in that space that, very soon, Tony, you're going to put in, write me the script for the Lombardi revival, and it will spit that out in 6 seconds. And I'm not going to use Brave New World is not the right phrase. That is what happens next? Who knows?
Yeah.
Lawyers are using it all the time now to write their papers and
who owns that IP?
it.
Who owns it? I don't know who owns it. Is it the people that authored the AI, or is it you, or is it Tony that also did Lombardi originally, and then you got to call Tony Ponturo up and get the rights because you did you get in a very, very weird space. It'll be a very, very different world, but there's some wonderful examples of snackable leagues out there. Ray, soccer, you've hit on it, you've invented it. It's obvious. Shorter field, more
That's
goals.
why I hit on it.
But it's great. But that's where it's going, and the reason why it's great is because it's more action in less time. It's almost like if you had a jar of marbles and they're big marbles, you can only put 25 in there. But what if I make a bunch of small marbles? I can get more of them in there. Or sand, I can get a lot more. I can get a lot more hockey in 16 minutes. Goals, we have 22, 23 shots per game for each team in 16 minutes. Yeah. So more saves, more breakaways, penalty shots. It's incredible. So that's where the landscape is moving. Look, I had this idea 7 or 8 years ago, and it took me a year and a half to sort of get it up and standing. And now we're at a place, we're coming up in our 4th season here. But objectively speaking, more action in a shorter amount of time, and you get to rinse and repeat 4 times in a game and a broadcast.
Yep, and we're betting.
We've just got a betting partner that we've signed on board. That's coming online for us as well. It's a new revenue stream, but it's more stickiness. The word engagement gets thrown around a lot, but I like stickiness a little bit because it means it's a little more precise word. Engagement can do different things to different people depending who you're speaking.
For sure.
So EJ, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to let Ray do it because we always have sort of a philosophical sort of question, and Ray's sort of good at that. So to bring us home, Ray, I know no pressure on you, but one last. You always have a good sort of like.
I'm a closer, Tony.
Life
ABC,
is short
man.
question.
ABC, always be closing.
I can't wait.
So, yeah, there's some easy ones that I won't go to, but I guess what I would say is, what pivot or what move did you make either too soon, before you were ready, before the market was ready for you? Things that you might look back on and say, I should have taken another beat.
The single market model, which we've moved to now, is a much better model. Again, it's almost like putting it in a Hollywood soundstage in a studio. There were some things that we wanted to try out. If we had traction at the level that we wanted in all of our markets, maybe it's a different story. We had some markets where we had about 4,000 people, Nashville, Pittsburgh. So we had some really nice traction. But the single market model, which we tested with the Florida Panthers last year, we went from about a half full building. By the end of it, it was packed. We expect the same trajectory to go on. That's probably one of the things that I think, in hindsight, you would have gone to that immediately and saved a little bit more time, a little bit more money. But there were some learnings there that came from it as well. So that's probably a pivot that I think if we would have done that in the first or second year, probably would have been beneficial.
Right.
I'm not sure what it would change the trajectory of the business, quite honestly.
Right. No, you got to throw it. I was actually asking about your career. Maybe I didn't phrase it well.
Sorry.
I didn't want to be specific to 3 Ice. I was thinking, EJ, so same question, career.
So in my career or the next pivot? What is the...
No, like a pivot you might have made back 10 years, 13, leaving an agency, going to IMG, going into the fashion business, too fast, too slow. I think we all have one of those where we say,
I think I probably stayed in Hollywood for a year or two too long. I was out there for almost 8 years. The first 4 or 5 years were fantastic. And then the last year or two, you could really start to see downward pressure on TV ratings. I mean, I remember being in meetings. I was just having this conversation last night. I remember being in meetings pitching cable networks, and their audiences were like 190,000 was a hit for those guys. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Or pitching reality television shows, and I was always doing things that was in the positive. Fashion Star was Dragon's Den. People's dreams are getting greenlit. We're selling clothes. We're turning people into household names overnight. It was wonderful. But when people started to ask me to make, I'll use the phrase car crash television, and that was what I could sell. And I said, I'm not doing that. I would leave meetings and I'd talk to my other partner and say, we're not doing that show. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to get up every day and exploit people. And so that was for about a year or so. I said, what am I doing out here? And I had this stack of business models, and I saw, we launched at IMG the Indian Premier League, which is the snackable version of cricket. And we did that 20 years ago. And I talked to that guy. His name's Ravi Krishnan. He was my colleague in India, and he ran the auction to build it. And I've been keeping in touch with him for 20 years. So it was kind of always in the back of my mind that you could do something like that in different spaces. So I guess the answer is I would have left Hollywood after 5 or 6 years rather than 7.5 to 8.
Yeah, yes. I think that's one of those great things for other folks in our audience to hear. Yeah, is it's easy to just get a little comfy, you know.
Or when you start to feel those it's not the right way to phrase it, the bad butterflies, when you sort of go into a room and you kind of like, I don't like this. I don't like this anymore. Right. Life's a long life, but it's also very short. If you have the the luxury of being able to point yourself at something that you want to do that. Rather than sitting around and just taking the paycheck. There's risks involved, but there's risks if you don't do it as well.
That's exactly right.
You've got to,
ultimately, like, not being happy.
You got to trust your gut on that stuff. And it's not about happiness per se. It's about meaning, and it's about, doing things that matter versus like, do I really want to make TV shows exploiting people? I can make a lot of money doing it, but that doesn't feel good to me. Yeah. There's ways to bring joy and create better commerce and give people jobs and create excitement and build businesses. So I guess my advice is when you start to get those weird sort of, this isn't great kind of stuff, have the guts to take a step forward into something new, knowing that you've got some of the skill set, but you can find the right people to fill in those knowledge gaps. And that's what I like to do. I like to think I take criticism fairly well. And when I know I don't know something, I go and get the right people in the right spots. Nick Saban and other coaches talk about getting the right people on the right bus, in the right seats at the right time. And that's really what you're doing as a manager of people or kind of an architect that's sitting above a business and making sure it happens. So I guess that's my advice. Recognize the vibes coming that just aren't strong.
Right. When I was running Cara, our first slide for any new business pitch was, when you're on the wrong bus, every stop's the wrong stop. And then we would show them how we thought they were on the wrong bus and come to Cara and we'll take care of it. Exactly what you said.
That's great. You create a great need, and it's a true statement. What was it? Henry Kissinger used to say, it also has the benefit of being true. He would say something that was not necessarily a pleasant truth, but it also had the benefit of also being correct. That's a great way to create a need and also be telling someone the truth.
Yep.
Well, EJ, we really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, but more importantly, your insight, your story.
That's great.
We imparted some wisdom, or you imparted some wisdom. Ray and I just
it's a pleasure, Tony. I enjoy this. I hope I like talking about the story. I like talking about the creation of 3 Eyes, but I think people can take something from it and hear that's spend time in Hollywood. Stories matter, and you can take it, put it through your own filter, and use it. And I think that's what your audience will enjoy, and hopefully it's either entertaining or helpful or both.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, thanks again, and thank you everyone for listening and watching.